When a lonely dog, abandoned by the world, sits crying outside a cafe. No one notices. No one cares. People pass by like he's invisible. But not everyone ignores loyalty. Not everyone turns their back on grief. One man, an officer, just enjoying his morning coffee, does notice. And he doesn't know that, after some time, this dog will risk everything to save his life. Before we begin, take a moment, hit like, subscribe, and share this story. And tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I want to see how far Shadow's story reaches. The morning sun filtered softly through the streets of Chicago, brushing golden light against wet pavements and the glassy reflections of tall buildings. The city was unusually calm for a weekday, a quiet interlude between the chaos that usually ruled these streets. Officer Daniel Hayes, a seasoned patrol officer, sat outside a small cafe, savoring a rare moment of peace. His breakfast sandwich lay untouched on the table, steam curling from his cup of coffee. Moments like this were rare, stolen minutes in a life usually dictated by sirens and emergencies. Across the street, a shadow moved slowly, limping slightly. Daniel didn't pay much attention at first. Stray dogs were a common sight in Chicago. But something about this one made him stop. It was a German shepherd, black with streaks of gray, eyes glistening with a sorrow that seemed almost human. He paused at the curb and let out a long, mournful whine that seemed to carry the weight of a lifetime of pain. Daniel frowned, sensing something different. Stray dogs were common, yes, but this one felt like he carried a story, something deeper than hunger or fear. The dog stepped closer to the cafe, whining louder, yet staying in place. People passed by, umbrellas shielding them from the morning sun, eyes focused straight ahead. Some muttered, "Scary dog," and hurried past. But the dog didn't move. His eyes locked onto Daniel, pleading for something only he could give. "Hey there, buddy," Daniel whispered, reaching a hand slowly toward him. Shadow tilted his head and let out a quiet whine. Not hunger, not yet. Recognition, understanding, connection. Arya, the cafe waitress, noticed Daniel staring and approached him cautiously. "Officer, that dog. His name is Shadow. He's been around here for months. People avoid him because they say he looks scary. But it's more than that," she said softly. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Arya sighed, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Shadow had a family once. A man, Mr. Thompson, was his owner. About a year ago, he passed away suddenly. Shadow stayed by his coffin every day before the funeral, crying. His family, they didn't know what to do with him. They left him, abandoned him. He's been surviving on scraps ever since, waiting, maybe for a family that will never return." Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had seen trauma before, seen people and animals affected by loss, but nothing like this. Shadow wasn't just a stray. He was a grieving soul, carrying heartbreak every single day. Shadow whimpered and stepped closer, trembling slightly. Daniel lowered his hand. Shadow sniffed it cautiously, then gently rested his head on Daniel's knee. Daniel's eyes blurred. He had trained dogs in the K9 unit, but never witnessed a sorrow like this. "It's okay, buddy. It's okay," he whispered, stroking his fur gently. For months, Shadow had walked the streets alone. Children threw stones. Adults mocked him. Some even whispered he was too big or too black to adopt. But Shadow didn't care. His world had been torn apart, and all he wanted was a family, a connection, someone to notice him again. Every day he wandered the city, scavenging for scraps. Every night he curled up on cold steps, dreaming of the family that would never return. Daniel couldn't ignore him. The next day, he returned to the cafe with a small bag of food. And the day after that. Slowly, Shadow began to recognize him. A cautious wag of his tail at first, then a hopeful one, and eventually full excitement, bouncing and nuzzling Daniel's hand. It became clear, Shadow's cries weren't just for food. They were for love, connection, security. A year of heartbreak had broken him, but Daniel knew he could help. Daniel decided to adopt Shadow. Bringing him home was not easy. Shadow sniffed every corner of the apartment cautiously, hesitant to trust again. He had been abandoned too many times to relax immediately. Daniel was patient, gentle, consistent. He offered proper food, a warm bed, and, most importantly, attention. Slowly, Shadow's trust grew. He began eating without fear, sleeping soundly, and wagging his tail with genuine joy. Their bond deepened. Daniel trained Shadow, but Shadow trained Daniel too. He taught him patience, empathy, and the true meaning of loyalty. At night, Daniel would whisper, "I don't know why the world has been so cruel, buddy, but I promise, I'll never abandon you. Not like they did." Shadow would nuzzle him, eyes shining, as if answering, "I believe you." Weeks passed. Shadow and Daniel became inseparable. Patrols, community events, quiet mornings. They did everything together. Shadow had a purpose now, and Daniel had a companion who knew him like no one else. Shadow's eyes, once filled with sorrow, now glimmered with trust. A dog who had been abandoned and broken had found a home, and Daniel had found a friend he could rely on unconditionally. They were more than man and dog. They were partners, family, loyal to each other in a way the world rarely sees. Life wasn't perfect. Shadow sometimes flinched at loud noises, shadows in the street, or the sudden approach of strangers. Daniel would kneel beside him, whispering reassuring words, rubbing his ears, and letting him know he was safe. At night, Daniel would sit on the couch, Shadow curled at his feet, and silently reflect. How could the world be so cruel? How could someone so loyal, so loving, be left to wander the streets alone? Those quiet reflections made him more aware of the little things. Shadow's soft whine when he was lonely, the small tremble when he saw a car too close, the slow wag of a tail when he trusted again. Every small moment was precious, a reminder of what patience and care could do. One rainy afternoon, Daniel was on patrol. Shadow sat alert in the passenger seat, ears perked, sensing every movement around them. Rain pattered against the windshield, turning streets into rivers of reflection. Suddenly, a car ran a red light. Daniel swerved, but it wasn't enough. The patrol car collided violently, flipping, metal twisting, glass shattering. Daniel's body slammed against the dashboard. Pain exploded through his chest and shoulder. His legs were pinned. He reached for the radio, hands trembling but couldn't form words. Panic set in. Shadow didn't hesitate. Crawling to Daniel's side, he nudged him, pressed his head against him. Then, instinctively, he grabbed the radio with his teeth and barked with all his strength. Desperate, loud, unrelenting. Dispatch understood immediately. Backup units traced the call and raced to the scene. Shadow stayed by Daniel's side, bleeding and battered, refusing to leave, guarding him with every ounce of his being. Minutes later, medics arrived. They saw Shadow, protective and loyal, standing over Daniel. Medics rushed to stabilize him, then gently lifted Shadow into the ambulance. At the hospital, Daniel awoke to find Shadow lying nearby, bandaged but alert. He reached for him. Shadow pressed his head into Daniel's arm. Tears streamed down Daniel's face.
"You saved me, buddy. You saved me," he whispered.
The nurse smiled. "You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. He didn't leave your side for a second." Daniel realized the depth of Shadow's courage. This wasn't just a pet. This was a hero, a family, a soul who had chosen to love again despite everything. If you're still watching this, it means Shadow's story touched you. Nobody else could feel it like you. Take a moment, hit like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs to see loyalty like this in the world. Weeks passed. Daniel returned to patrol, Shadow faithfully by his side. Stakeouts, community events, quiet moments, they did everything together. Shadow's eyes always scanned the crowd, searching for Daniel, just like he once searched for the family he lost. Daniel often thought back to that first day, Shadow trembling in the sun, ignored by the world. How could people be so cruel? How could they abandon someone so loyal? Now Shadow had a home, a family, a purpose. And Daniel had learned the meaning of trust, patience, and unconditional love. Daniel often sits quietly with Shadow, watching the city go by. He scratches behind his ears, whispers, "You're my hero, buddy, and I'll never forget that." Shadow nudges his hand, rests his head on his leg, eyes amber and full of love. Loyal, brave, and gentle. The world can be harsh and unforgiving, But Shadow proved that courage and loyalty can shine brighter than despair. Sometimes the smallest, furriest heroes save the biggest hearts. If Shadow's story touched your heart, honor him by sharing it. Hit like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Let the world know that heroes come in all shapes, sizes, and even 4 legs. Shadow reminds us that love, courage, and loyalty are timeless, and sometimes the ones we least expect are the greatest heroes of all.